Hagmann and Hagmann report for today. It is a terrific Tuesday edition. It is Tuesday, December 16th, 2014. I'm Doug Hagmann with my son, fellow investigator, co-host, and troublemaker, Joe Hagmann, in studio. Together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann report. I want to welcome all new listeners. Thank you so much for checking in with us, really from pole to pole, from ocean to ocean, all continents, I think. Well, maybe not all of them. Oh, we'll go with maybe 4, 5 out of 7. Welcome to the Hagmann and Hagmann report tonight. Thanks for listening. Thank you so much for your belief and trust in us. Just want to let you know that we broadcast, for the new listeners, we broadcast live each and every weeknight, 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern. That's right. Just you can set your watch to us, 8 to 11 Eastern time. And by the way, speaking of that, speaking of the times, next week, the week of Christmas, we will be live on Christmas Day night from 8 to 11, regular program. And we will also be live on New Year's Day night. There's only 2 days that we take off. And that's Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. And the reason for that is we just 2 days for our family, if you don't mind. I mean, if that's possible. That's all we ask. That's all I ask. And aside from that, however, Christmas Day night, if you don't mind, invite us to your table and we'll sit and talk with you. And the same with New Year's as well. But I want to welcome everyone to the show. If it's Tuesdays, it's Stan Dale night. Stan will be with us during the second hour. And we welcome that, the real Indiana Jones. God bless him. God bless his wife, Holly. They're just terrific people. And, boy, I got a lot of emails, Joe, about last week's program with Stan. I just got a ton of emails saying they just love the stories and love the, laid-back attitude about the were you here? Yeah, you were. I was
here physically only. I was literally this is when the real brunt of my sickness or flu or whatever bug I caught was kicking in, and I was literally, I remember on Tuesday, sitting in this chair half drooling, half coughing and feverish and just out of it. I know you did the majority of the talking with Katie in the first hour, with Stan in the second hour, and took over. Actually, during the break of the second hour, said, you need to go home. And I said, well, I made it through this far. I might as well just stay for another hour. But, yeah, that was a show I'll have to go back and listen to. But Stan Dale will be joining us in hour number 2 tonight, and there's no shortage of questions we have for him from not only listeners, but questions that we have compiled together. But if you do have a question for Stan, send it to studio at hagmanandhagmann.com. That's studio at hagmanandhagmann.com. Or you go to our website.
Yeah, that's the way.
And there's a little contact box. You fill out the information, and we will get that the same way. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you. We're going to get into a lot of news tonight in this first hour, specifically starting off with the news from Pakistan this morning. I, last night, had a real rough sleep, which has been a change. I've been getting a lot of sleep as when I was sick. I couldn't do anything hardly but sleep. Trying to keep your eyes open, actually. You're so tired when you're that sick. But couldn't sleep last night. Fell asleep around 4 a.m., was up at 8 a.m., and I turned on Fox News because I was hoping it would bore me enough to put me back to sleep for a short bit. Well, I start hearing the story about this school in Pakistan. There's a headline from NBC News, "Death All Around Me. Victims Relive Pakistan School Massacre." And it goes on to, it has a video here, but in the article it describes what happened in Pakistan, Peshawar, Pakistan?
Peshawar, yeah.
It says Tuesday morning after Taliban militants in suicide vests laid siege to a school, massacring more than 130 children during an 8-hour period of sheer terror. 145 people were killed in total. a teacher was set on fire in front of these kids.
You know, folks, some of the most horrendous, evil acts, things that, in fact, if you turn on Fox News or whatever Western source of news that you might have. Now, we've got, actually, we are able to circumvent the Western sanitation of news to get, well, you can do it too, I suppose, through BBC or whatever. But
yeah, and for the lack of attention this got today in America, that wasn't the case for the most of the world either.
You know, the other, if you have the tweet deck as well, you can follow people in real time, okay, that are close to this situation, if you know who to follow. And it's really something you've got to manage. At least I found that you've got to manage very heavily, but you can get actual reports in real time from people close or knowledgeable of what's going on. You know, before we get further into this, I just want to, again, welcome everyone to the program. HagmannandHagmann.com is our home base on the Internet. A couple of things before we really get into this, because I do want to get into this and other issues, but I just want to say that folks, with HagmannandHagmann.com as what we're trying to do, what I've been doing, and there's a couple of things going on here. I know people are having trouble listening to this program live via BTR. Man, I'll tell you, I just want to bang my head against the wall sometimes. It's just so frustrating. It's almost as if every time you take a step, somebody's cutting banging your knee with a baseball bat. But here's what we're going to do, or here's what I'm trying to do. The file size is an issue. Forget about listening live for a moment. The downloads. File size is an issue. It's like 165 megabytes, right, per episode.
Yeah, and it started out at, I believe, between 40 and 60 megabytes per episode. Then Blog Talk reformatted their website, and with that part of that they reformatted, they increased the file size for what they said was an increased audio quality purposes, and there was nothing we could do to change them back. And they went up to about 145 megabyte files. They're huge files.
165 actually is right now is the norm. So
right.
Here's what I've been doing, and I'm downloading the shows. I am trying to clean up the audio. I am then reducing the file size. Okay, this all takes time, and I'm going back retroactively as well, reducing the file size and then uploading them to SoundCloud. I'm also talking with NitroHost. By the way, if you're looking for a very good internet service provider, NitroHost, NITRO, NitroHost, fantastic service. And I mean to tell you, I've never had a service like this. And folks, for the record, just so you know, because there's a lot of crazy business, and I'm kind of going on a side note here. There's a lot of crazy business out there on the internet. In June of, was it last year? When did you get? How long have you been married?
It'll be 3 years this June. I've been married since June 23rd, 2012.
Okay, so 2 years ago, this past June, GoDaddy sent me a termination notice.
Yeah, that was the 21st of June, I believe. 21st or 22nd, 48 hours before the wedding.
Okay, right. And they said, look, HomelandSecurityUS.com is in violation of the terms of service. There's no appeal process. We don't like you. Get the heck off of our servers. You got 48 hours to do it. End of story. It was not because we didn't pay our bill. I mean, for crying out loud. Okay, and I see so much of this, these idiots out there. And sorry, but no. And I've got the actual notice. In fact, it's posted on the HomelandSecurityUS.com. What I intend to do is bring all of that back. I just wanted to, in my zeal for NitroHost, they came to our aid and they said, hey, well, we don't have a problem with your content, and we never look back. So I would highly recommend the NitroHost. And there was nothing wrong with our content. And it's interesting because I think we had GoDaddy, and I'm not, well, don't quote me on this, but we had actually posted one of the first, we were the first
videos?
Yeah, we were the first website to post the actual beheading videos that were uploaded to the Arabic language terrorist websites. Now, we did that not for the salacious effect of it.
I think these are the first beheading videos ever to appear on the Internet. I was young at the time. I was working with you as an investigator. It was just after 9/11, I think 2002, if I remember right, 2002, 2003.
Yeah, it was 03, 04, something like that.
Because I was not awake or did not have an interest really even in except for 9/11. My geopolitical interest was lacking then, I remember. And I remember you not making me, but telling me to watch this video. And that we watched a few of them and watched and listened. And that's something that I will never forget.
With you. Yes, and the reason we did that because the Western media was really, they were not portraying the violence. We did it because the Western media was not living up to it wasn't for effect. It wasn't for anything other than educational. Look at what is taking place. It's one thing to say that this man was beheaded. It's another thing to see it, and then just see it once, and then that's it. Okay, so now you know. Now the argument on the other side of that is, look, I don't have to hit myself in the head with a ball-peen hammer to understand that it's going to hurt and leave damage. I understand that as well. But when you've got the Western media saying, well, hey, go ahead and hit yourself, it's not going to hurt, then you've got to combat that with, okay, look at those who have hit themselves on the head with a hammer. And I'm not, this show and this segment is not to say who's right or who's wrong about that. I'm just saying that we were one of the first. And to say that, it's interesting because I think at the time we had the same web hosting provider, and they had no problem with that. But at any rate, when we started probing the Obama eligibility issue, when we started really getting into some of the oddities with respect to this regime, that's when they kicked us off. And so it was never over any. I mean, for crying out loud, come on. So I just wanted to clear that up, and I'm not even sure where I was going. Oh, well. So anyway, yeah, the file size. So I'm hopefully what we can do, and I'm going to try to do this, is for the archives. In addition to SoundCloud, which we're uploading to, some people have a problem with that. All I want to do is be able to maybe store some the audio files on our servers, and then have have you be able to just download them very effortlessly. I'm the kind of guy that could screw up. I mean, you give me a computer and an on button and a keyboard, I could do more damage to a computer than, So I'm not the brightest bulb when it comes to electronics. So I want to make this as easy as possible. I've gotten emails from people in Central America and even in Asia saying, you know what, we're trying to download your shows, but are you kidding me? I mean, these file sizes are just unmanageable. So we're working on all that to say this. We're working on these issues. Every email that we got about the file size or about the quality or about whatever it is, about BTR, so, the changes there, we're even trying to appeal to them. Please change it back. Let me just, one other thing, folks. Try this, those who are listening, without respect to the file size. If you want to download or if you're having trouble file size or files, but the size is not an issue, just click on our, if you go to any article, just pick an article, and it'll bring up the article page. Well, to the right of the article, it's got this RSS feed thing. Just click on that, and that'll take you to our Blog Talk page, and it should give you the option to download it in MP3 format, WMA format, as well as listen live. Now, or not listen. Well, you can listen live that way as well, or listen through their player. I've had some problems with that, with the player listening on that page. But all that said, we're working on it, folks. Okay, and hopefully during this kind of slower period, we're going to get by. Some more housekeeping. No, you know what? We're just going to get right into this. We're going to save some housekeeping, the rest of the housekeeping for later in the hour. I think this is so important. Joe, you were awake when this news of this slaughter happened in Pakistan. Let me just say that
I spent about an hour and a half of my morning listening to the information coming into Fox News about this story, and they're switching back and forth from their breaking news about this shooting in a Pakistani school versus the political announcement of Jeb Bush running for president in 2016. I would say Bush got more coverage than this massacre, but this is one of the most horrific stories you could hear. 130 children were murdered, 145 people killed in total. Those who survived emerged with stories of horror of gunmen shooting indiscriminately into crowds or killing youngsters one by one. A military source told NBC News that the attackers were wearing police uniforms and suicide vests. Also, they burnt a teacher in front of their students in the classroom and literally set the teacher on fire with gasoline and made the kids watch. That also from the military source to NBC. The government of Pakistan declared 3 days of mourning for the lives lost. Major General Bawa, a military spokesman, told NBC News that at least 132 children were killed in the attack, 10 staff from the school, including the principal, 7 militants were killed, and 7 special forces soldiers were injured. And they did not have to take any hostages initially. They started firing in the hall. This is from Major General Bawa, or Bajwa, however that's pronounced, as he told the press conference. He told NBC News that they had enough ammunition and rations to have kept up the siege for days. At a hospital near the school, blood-stained floors, crying relatives roamed the wards and searched operating rooms, desperately searching for their sons or daughters. One room at the Central Military Hospital was filled with teenagers who had bullet wounds, shrapnel embedded in their flesh, as well as burn marks. A doctor, Brig Mohammed Wakar, said his son attended the school and watched with dread as victim after victim was brought in. He said, "I was waiting for him to turn up dead in an ambulance. I wanted to grab a gun and go to the school myself," the doctor said. The Pakistani Taliban have claimed responsibility for the attack, which Pakistani officials have appeared to be aimed at the children of senior military personnel, they say. It goes on to state that uniformed military struck shortly before 11 a.m. local time, and that is when about 1,000 students, grades 1 through 10, and teachers who were inside.
Wait a second. This is a military school, or a school that's run by the military, actually. Okay, just so people are clear on this. Go ahead.
Yeah, about 11 a.m. local time, 1 a.m. Eastern, when 1,000 students from first and teachers were inside. It says, "We were standing outside the school and firing suddenly started and chaos was everywhere and screams of children and teachers." This from a school bus driver. It goes on to say the gunmen entered class by class and shot some kids one by one. One student who was in the Army public school in Peshawar at the time of the told local media. As the siege continued, the security forces of the Pakistanis battled to stop the assault. 5 heavy explosions were heard from the school around 5 p.m. Bombs planted by the attackers slowed rescue efforts, a military official said, and the massacre was not declared over until 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And, there are comments, including from our president. President Obama slammed the attack and said America stands with the people of Pakistan and its government efforts to fight the terrorism by targeting students and teachers in this erroneous act. Terrorists have once again shown their depravity, he said in a statement. And it goes, we can get into as much detail as this or stay. I don't think.
Well, I think the
psychological the evil, as you were going to just get into, I believe, unless you were going to say the devil's in the details.
I wasn't going to.
The amount of not only lifelessness or compassion or the level of evil you would have to have in your heart to carry out some type of massacre, any type of massacre on innocent children like this, I just don't get it. I don't see what gives these people, what have these children done aside from being possible children of people that aren't liked by you, kind of like what we saw in Oslo, Norway, I believe. Was that also not a group or a summer retreat of children of a political class, I believe? Do you remember what I'm talking about, Dad?
I wasn't listening. I'm sorry. No, I'm just kidding.
Oslo in Norway, when that shooter killed all those children on that summer camp island. Were they not also the children of special right-wing political affiliations?
It was a politically motivated revenge style killing, as this was. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't care whose kids they were. This is just complete evil, a massacre of over 130 students lasting 8 hours in a siege and an attack on a school housing 1st to 10th graders. You always hear people use quick puns and pick on someone your own size, or I just can't get it. A bunch of innocent children attending school, and this is your target of choice. This is the battle you choose to fight, and where you choose to show your dominance. Were there not any women, retreats around, or are there not? I mean, why children as the targets? Why not pick on somebody? You want to go after the government, and this was the target, children of a alleged government or military predisposition or ideology. Why not throw a coup against them instead of so cowardly going after the children?
Well, okay. Here's my take on this, and I think we have to look at the larger picture here, because yesterday I penned an article. Or 2 days ago. I think it was I don't know. Days run together. Was it yesterday or the day before? It was on. It's on Canada Free Press. Still is. It's information from a DHS insider, and yes, I do talk with people inside DHS, and of course they talk with people at different intelligence agencies, and things are said. And I think the title of the article was "Sydney is a game changer," essentially, and this is part of this push toward, and I believe this to be true, toward an assault against Christianity. Now, how do I extrapolate that from this? Well, okay, first of all, you've got to understand, back 30, 40 years ago, the United States, the Western intelligence agencies were propping up the Taliban in Afghanistan to fight against the Soviet forces there. Now, understand that with U.S. help, by the way, we gave Pakistan a great deal of influence over Afghanistan after the withdrawal of the Soviet forces back in 1989. Understand this as well, that Pakistan is also the base to various Saudi-funded Wahhabi Salafi terror groups, including Lashkar Taiba, or LET. That group is responsible for, remember, the commando-style assault on Mumbai that killed 174 people back in 2008. It's interesting that these groups are officially outlawed, yet the members of these groups are allowed to just freely operate within the borders of Pakistan. In fact, one of its leaders, one of its founders, Hafiz Saeed, lives openly in Lahore, Pakistan, and is always on Twitter or social media, whatever the social media of that area would be, including Twitter, I believe. So do we not need to seriously evaluate or reevaluate our ties to a brutal military dictatorship vis-a-vis Pakistan and stop the militarization of Pakistan?
Saudi Arabia.
And Saudi Arabia.
Other countries
exactly.
that have the same or similar practices as the governments that you were referring to.
Now let's take a look at, and I'm sure most Americans busy with shopping for the holidays or otherwise busy just trying to pay their bills did not know that Congress last week approved another $1 billion in military assistance to Pakistan. Don't forget that Pakistan is a nuclear power thanks to AQ-Khan, the AQ-Khan network, and others that we covertly supported. Now, why am I saying all of this? And how can I possibly say that this is going to result in an attack against the Christian faith? Well, as George W. Bush and others had already stated that we worship the same God. We don't worship the same God, just to be clear. The Christians worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The Muslims worship an entirely different God, and I am so tired of people who insist that that's not an accurate statement. And
not to bump you off your train of thought here, but while I have this in my mind, I know we talked about this privately off air. I don't think we had a chance to bring it to light, and it's a question I'm going to pose to listeners who have the understanding. Oh goodness! Well, I just lost my train of thought. We were talking about what were you just talking about before I cut you off? Because
I've got short-term memory loss. I don't remember. No, actually,
I can't stand when this happens.
Well,
it's important.
I think I know where you're. I think I know where you're going with this because we were talking about the. Is this about the surveillance of mosques and?
No.
Okay,
this
we're
is a
talking
spiritual issue. If when it comes back to my mind,
all right.
I'll ask.
All right. Well, where I was going with this brings us to the surveillance of mosques. Okay, here in this country. Once you understand, and once people understand that the Quran is a book filled with hate, killing, and worship of a God that is not the same God of Christianity, once people get that, once people understand that, do we need to go through this line by line, the 109 surahs that advocate violence? Go ahead, Joe.
I got my question here, and it pertains to what you're talking about. You know, when we see George Bush in a statement talking about the New World Order and referring to the law of nature, and we see these globalists refer to the law of nature frequently. Well, when you get into that, it is also referring to survival of the fittest. And, when we think, law of nature, you think, well, God controls the earth, the atmosphere. He's the God of everything. But we have also Satan, who is the prince of the power of the air. Now, we know that these elites are subjected or go through their families' inbreed. And when inbreeding happens, it creates a number of diseases and deformities in the offspring. Well, is the law of nature cited because of the survival of the fittest, the survival of the fittest being those who made it out of the ancestral relationship undeformed and who are there in control, meaning their genes, even though going through the what would you say, the deformations that incest brings in, are these people who are in the places of power without these deformities, referring to the law of nature because they think their genes are they are the survival of the fittest. They are the what do they call it? The strongest.
Right, and I think that maybe you might be speaking to the
survival of the fittest.
promotion of evolution as well, which goes back to the religion of evolution and the religion of this globalism,
right?
The globalist religion.
But I just wanted to throw it out there specifically for royalty and inbreeding. If the ones who do not show the deformities and end up being leaders of countries and nations or corporations that hold the names of these countries or nations, are they referring to the law of nature because that's what they believe, that they were the ones who survived because they were the fittest to survive, even though they all went through the same conditions of inbreeding in their family? As you will find countless articles of people who are of royal lineage hidden, kind of like Quasimodo, the old story of the hunchback who lived in the cathedral. There are articles, you can find countless numbers of them on the internet that are true, where they hoard these deformed children of incest in these special places, out of sight of the public and out of sight from the media, especially in Europe. So the question is the law of nature referred to not solely, but for a majority of the reason of the survival of the fittest, them surviving the ancestral relationship and coming out without the deformities, their genes being superior?
How does that relate to this? I mean, I get what you're saying, but
it really doesn't. But it's something that's been on my mind lately, and I just wanted to ask people out there who had much more intellectual abilities than I did, if I'm getting close to something or if I'm way off base. So feel free to weigh in if that was understood.
Okay. I'm not sure I understood that, but okay. No, I think I know where you're headed, and that's a question that interesting question, by the way. It's a very interesting question. But let me just get back to Pakistan for a moment, because this is so important. I do suspect that what we're seeing here is really this really plays into the hands of the globalists. Now, it's a horrendous situation what happened in Pakistan. But we have to understand the history of Pakistan. We've got to understand, especially the recent history of Pakistan. If you go back to the 1991 Persian Gulf War, and recall how many times the term New World Order, the phrase New World Order, was used, there was really no explanation given by George Herbert Walker Bush or others who used that term, except that really it implied this new spirit of cooperation among nations to further the cause of peace. Now, under this umbrella of peace will exist this global unity of religion or belief system. When you see events like what happened in Pakistan, it just rips your heart out to think that these children were beheaded, were executed, teachers burned alive. I mean, any horror imaginable happened. And this is designed by, this is of the devil. And of course, it's designed to a public outcry. But to put this in a larger perspective, let's go back a little bit very, very quickly. Let me just summarize this, because when we talk about New World Order, it was used by Hitler, for example. He stated that National Socialism will use its own revolution for the establishment of a new world order. If you go back to King Edward Edward VIII of England back in 1936, I believe it was, he was talking about a new world order. He became the Duke of Windsor, governor of the Bahamas. Okay, well, what does this have to do with Pakistan today and what's going on? Well, let's bounce closer here to current events. When peace comes this time, there's going to be a new order of social justice. I think that statement can be attributed to former governor of New York, Nelson Rockefeller. He was talking about running for, in fact, that was from a speech from 1968 as he was running for president. During the 1976 presidential campaign, Carter said that we must replace balance of power politics with world order politics. And on February 14th, 1977, Carter said in a speech, "I want to assure you that the relations of the United States with other countries and peoples of the world will be guided during my own administration by our desire to shape a world order that is more responsive to human aspirations." The key sentence is next, when he said the U.S. will meet its obligation to help create a stable, just, and peaceful world order. Now, what you saw in Pakistan is anything but peaceful. George Herbert Walker Bush, in February 1990, in a fundraiser in San Francisco, phrased New World Order in the limelight. He said, "Time and again in the century, the political map of the world was transformed, and in each instance, a New World Order came about through the advent of a new tyrant, or the outbreak of a bloody global war, or its end." Now think about that. What are we seeing here? We talk about terrorism, we're talking about terrorists, we're talking about massacres, and we're talking about Pakistan. Isn't this what's implied in the statements, whether it be Jimmy Carter or George Herbert Walker Bush or George W. Bush? This is exactly what we're seeing. In fact, the September 17th, 1990 issue of Time magazine said that the Bush administration would like to make the United Nations a cornerstone of its plan to construct a new world order. Remember back then, Jeannie Kirkpatrick, former U.S. ambassador to the UN, said that one of the purposes for Desert Storm was to show the world how a reinvigorated United Nations could serve as a global cop in the New World Order. Actually, she used the word policeman. And prior to the Gulf War, which began on January 29, 1981, Bush told the nation in his State of the Union address, "What is at stake is more than one small country. It's a big idea. It's a new world order." Mm-hmm. Hey, remember that? That's what he was talking about.
Where the vision of the UN's founders can be fulfilled, not the United States founders, where the visions of the UN founders can and will be fulfilled.
No, any one of us could go on the internet, visit numerous websites, read numerous books, but still, I believe, and I think this to be true, that the bigger picture is lost among most of us. This is because, really, the idea is not new. There is this ancient philosophy rooted in a new world order. We have to understand, really, there's nothing new under the sun. It's not while it might be a new world order, it's the old world order revamped. The founders of the New World Order are assumed to be the guardians of the occult mysteries. They resemble the ancient mysteries of Egypt. This is why we have people on who talk about the ancient mysteries and occult aspects to be informed. And that they are to reinstate mystery plan in the same fashion as the magical mystery religion of ancient Egypt exercised a great fascination over the Renaissance and Renaissance men, when symbols and gestures had become a means of conveying secrets and truths. The cosmos was seen as just one huge organic unity, and it was peopled by a hierarchy of spirits that exercise all sorts of influences and sympathies. Now, as we keep coming forward, and this is important because it brings us right to today, we understand that New World Order or the refashion Old World Order cannot happen overnight. It's got to happen through a series, or incrementally, through a series of events that will allow or will cause people to say enough. And what causes people to say enough more than the wholesale killing of women, children, the raping, the pillaging, the plundering, the things like what happened in Pakistan today? Yes, trust me, I understand how horrific it is. But no one is talking about the larger what's going on here. especially since we created the Taliban. It's an artifact, and people, folks, I'm simplifying it, obviously. I mean, we didn't put an ad in the newspaper and recruit for the Taliban. No, but the Western intelligence, the CIA, in combination with the British intelligence and Israeli intelligence services, created the Taliban, created this monster, just as we created ISIS. The very people, the Taliban, I mean, folks, they were invited guests in Texas prior to 9/11 before workings in Afghanistan in order to run their oil, Unocal's oil lines through Afghanistan. Couldn't do it because the Taliban kept blowing things up, and that really kind of hacked off the oil people. Geez, lay the pipe, bang, it's gone. Hey, it's really affecting our bottom line here. I don't know how much simpler I can make this. So, when we look at Pakistan, and I would urge everyone to study or at least understand the origins of Pakistan, how it was really, how it became a nation state among itself after the war. So, what is taking place here? Now, I'm not, hear me clear, I'm not saying that this was a planned event by the Western intelligence services. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is the monster was created through the Western intelligence services. This should have been fully expected. They are using the Muslims as a tool and useful idiots in one way to usher in the New World Order. They're creating Hegelian dialectics essentially all over the world. They're waiting for people to be so outraged, and they are lumping Abrahamic faiths, or they're saying, well, Islam is an Abrahamic faith, erroneously so that they can lump Islam, Christian, Jews all together and say, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to come to an agreement in order to avoid the mass killing of children and women and all of these bad things that we see taking place. Come to an agreement, and we're going to create a religion that is acceptable to everyone, except it won't be unless you're either part of a megachurch or you're part of an Islamic ruling family, or part of the monarchy, or part of the globalist government that is being established. Hopefully, you can see the bigger picture here. And this will happen, or people will be more open to this when we see this happening more in the United States. This will happen in the United States. Maybe not to the extent that we saw it today in Pakistan, although I do suspect it will. Be wrong. But how many times, and I see this, if you look at the comments on the news stories, do you see people, maybe they're not people, maybe they're bots or whatever, saying, well, religion and in specifically fundamentalist beliefs are responsible for all of the ills of the world. It's antiquated. It's Middle Ages. It's medieval. We've got to stop this.
Yeah, and many of the United Nations initiatives that deal with what would seemingly be what they call sustainable development or economic improvement. The Future We Want is a publication they released in tandem with a United Nations Global Compact 2014 through 2016, where they use the 10 Millennium Goals that they have to eradicate poverty, and they want to what they have here, reaffirm their commitment to making every effort to accelerate the achievement of internationally agreed developed goals, including the Millennium Development Goals by 2015. They want to, reaffirm and continue to be guided by the principles in the Charter of the United Nations with full respect to international laws and principles, but in order for freedom and peace, security, and respect for all human rights and life, and the right for that life to develop an adequate standard of living, including the right to food, the rule of law, gender equality, and the empowerment over all, they state that a universal declaration of human rights, as well as their international instruments of human rights and their international law, through the Charter of the United Nations, they want to create a one-world utopian-style system. This is their stated goal since their inception, and what their real goal is a spiritual agenda. They are working towards a universal religious system through a one-world political, socio-economical, and military dictatorship, or empire, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And they're doing this under the context of the green, agenda, under the poverty eradication, vaccination, and health opportunities for underprivileged children, etc. These are their words, not mine. But they're using all these terms that sound, wonderful. Sound like they would be, like we talk about. If every human on Earth were to truly, if every person, no matter how much wealth they had, were to take whatever extra wealth they did have and help a person in need and who was poor out themselves without being told to do so, without a government mandate, order, or law, we would be able to feed all of our own homeless people across the world, house them, and live in a utopian society. But because of our human sin nature,
hold that thought, because that's going to come. That's going to come in a minute here. I'm sorry. Go on.
No, I was just going to say, because of our human sin nature, we can't do that. At the same time, there are many people who have what the UN calls goodwill, or they are good people. Maybe they are religious, maybe they aren't, maybe they're believers in Jesus, maybe they're not. But they're going to use either side to their advantage to create what they call the social, sustainable development, this inclusiveness, this community we talk about, to where you're going to either be part of the community or you're going to be perceived as a threat, a life threat to the community, meaning you will be a deadly threat. And this will be predominantly to, I believe, Christians and Muslims who aren't violent or won't conform to the universal religious standard, however it is rolled out and whoever rolls it out. But only the Lord can create a one-world government under peace. And we're told in the Bible that through the words peace and safety, that they will destroy millions. The majority, through peace and safety, will be lied to under those words and that phrase, and it will be used as a Trojan horse to bring in the opposite, disorder and chaos.
Okay, right. And you're exactly right. Let me just really quickly dispense with this email from Ron and Diane. Thank you for your email. They're right, Joe, you seem shocked and surprised at the brutality of the murders in Pakistan. Why? Let me interject something here to Ron and Diane. I don't think Joe is surprised at the brutality, nor am I. I mean, this is to Ron and Diane and others, of course. I took I'm certified in the forensic discipline of blood spatter analysis, and you to get that certification, you've got to see a lot of blood, gore, guts, and all kinds of bad things. Okay, and I remember during that whole course of classes, during that whole field exercise, and going out and seeing some of the worst of the worst, yeah, you're not surprised. You're repulsed. It's repugnant. It's horrible. It's horrific.
Yeah, I'm not shocked or surprised. I'm honestly very angry and not in a good place when hearing and reading about the story spiritually, because it brings out my wanting revenge side, wanting to rectify that situation. I just couldn't imagine. I mean, this could happen in America. It could happen in Canada, in Australia, Pakistan, anywhere.
To some extent, it has happened in America.
That is coming through my voice. It's not shock and surprise. After countless stories of how these Islamist extremists, whether CIA factions or of their own extremism.
Well, let's get the terminology correct.
Whatever the people are, these terrorists, these proponents
Muslims
of terror. Okay, whatever they are. Muslims. Well, there's a lot of terror done under the guise of being Muslim that is Western backed too. But when the name is I can't remember the name now. In the summer, these people kidnapped the children, a school full of girls, young girls, and used them as
Boko Haram.
Yes, exactly. And what they did with those, I mean, it's not surprise and shock. We've seen this over and over. It is just sheer anger. I don't want to say hatred, but unless I check myself and I do some reading of the scripture and some prayer, it will get to that level in my mind.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with righteous anger. I mean, to see a child, an innocent child, or a young person.
But to let that anger, like I said, if I don't check myself, if I don't understand and recognize that, it's something that's affecting my emotions, and go to the scriptures and try to work that out. And if I dwell on those thoughts that are incorrect or inaccurate, or the cause of the harm, it will lead me to a worse place in my mind, I guess is the point.
I understand that. I get that. But we do understand. I mean, they write Islam is a psychopathic criminal cult rooted in murder, sex, and pure evil. Understood. In fact, yesterday, this is why yesterday, and I got so many emails. You cannot believe the emails I got yesterday, saying, "Well, you can't, you shouldn't advocate. You're talking both sides of your mouth. You're talking, you're saying, well, go ahead and surveil the mosques, but leave the synagogues and cathedrals alone." It's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying that for our physical safety. For our physical safety, we have to identify the enemy. We have to understand who the enemy is. Ultimately, it's satanic, rooted in satanic, and I get all that. But on the earthly realm here, we have to understand that Muslims who adhere to the doctrine of Islam are, in fact, adherent to the Quran. They will kill you if they cannot convert you or tax you, basically.
How many of these terrorist attacks or attempted terrorist attacks that we've seen have actually had ties to U.S. intelligence agency involvement, though?
More and more.
I mean, we're talking in the 90-some percentile in a lot of cases.
Right.
So there is also an element of a rogue faction or an active faction of our government, of a shadow military system that is using the Muslim curtain.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get across
proxy.
too. Okay, if we have the good guys surveilling the mosques, and then we address the problem with our government facilitating these kinds of operations, or facilitating using the Muslims, knowing their propensity and their creed, understanding it's one of violence, they can use them. Certainly, much easier. It's much easier for example, for if I was a handler, we'll say, it would be much easier for me to approach someone who's got a propensity already in a belief in violence and violent behavior and has shown violent tendencies or adheres to a violent ideology. It'd be much easier for me to cause that person to commit a violent act than for me to go into a Baptist church somewhere in the South and say, hey, here's what I want you to do. To some unassuming Christian, even pro-life, anti-abortion, and pro-family, anti-homosexual. You see what I'm saying? It's a continuing course of conduct. They're easier to manipulate and manage. This is what we're seeing. We're seeing this being done in mass with the Islamic faith, the Islamic faith, with Islam, with Muslims. Now, the Christian faith is much different. So to those people who have sent me emails, which I'm not going to respond to, about saying, well, you're talking about talking from both sides of your mouth. No, we're talking about, one, a Christian religion of faith, a system of faith that's rooted in Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, in one of life as opposed to death, versus a political, financial, and military cult or organization that's disguised as a religion. If you know, and these are not this is not my personal assessment. You can go back to the mid-2000s and read the 330-some page report by Douglas Coughlin from the Pentagon, who did a study, and that study was deep-sixed by the powers, and that's really kind of one of the other things that got me changed in understanding the bigger picture. But so we're not talking about a system of religion here. We're talking about a system of a group, a cult being managed as a tool for the New World Order. I guess that's the bottom line here. We're running close to the top of the hour.
And not to offend anyone, excuse me.
Why not? I think I've already done a good job of that. So you go ahead.
The Catholic hierarchy, the hierarchy of Catholic system. They are also at the spearhead of creating and placating, seemingly, and along with the Pope especially, more than willing to open new paths to merging this interfaith, one belief system, the belief in one God system, only not the God of our Bible, at the same time in many different ways than we see from the other side with the way it is being portrayed through Islam. But with that, we are at the top of the hour, and we do have Stan coming up. So.
Okay, before we cut off, I just want to tip my hat to Elaine S., who writes really quickly. Joe, your question is a valid one, referring back to your question earlier. She sent a link, and then says this, they were offended. Well, guess what? I'm offended at incestuous relationships being scoffed at, even though the DNA truth reveals he was a product of such a vile sexual union, offered such physical, mental deformities. And so on. The key sentence here, the truth does not matter to those who can't handle the real truth. They live in la-la land. Yeah, I absolutely. And to close this hour out, I didn't mean to overtalk you, but I did. I received an email. It was pretty long earlier today, talking about fear. That was the title of this, in the subject line, fear. And the emailer said that she was sitting there shaking her head, listening to myself and Joe discuss a woman's email about her bad feelings, and then being taken to task, saying essentially that I'm paraphrasing here, that we're promoting fear. Well, no, I'm not paraphrasing. I'm going to say this. Therefore, you guys are promoting fear and tribulation in the hearts of Christians today that see the end is near. Well, let me tell you something, ma'am. If we report the truth and you accept that as fear, or if you take that as fear, as doom porn, as fear porn, we're telling you what's happening. We're not promoting an agenda of fear and tribulation. That's being done for you.
in 1 John 4:18, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. He hath feareth is not made perfect in love. In Jude, it talks about fear in a way that it says, some save through compassion, others save with fear, pulling them out of the fire, hating even the garment spotted by the flesh. We are told to love our Lord, yet also to fear him. And that is the only fear that we are to have, is fear of the Lord. Any other fear is fear that is a issue that needs to be worked out on your personal walk with the Lord.
Right. And I'm not
the Lord
says,
fears nothing on the earth that will become, or fear none of these things that shall suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation for 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. That's one example from Revelation 2:10. And it goes on. I mean, there's countless references in the Old and New Testament as to how to deal with fear. Being confident in your faith is another one of them in Philippians 1:14. And many of the brethren in the Lord, waxing confident by my bonds, are much more bold to speak the word without fear. It goes on to say in 1 Timothy 5:20, them that sin rebuke before all, that others also may fear. For the Lord has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and of a sound mind. So the Lord has not given us a spirit of fear. Therefore, we need not be submitting to a spirit of fear, only a fear of the Lord. With that, we're going to go to the top of the hour break. Ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this Tuesday, December 16th, 2014, as we are every Tuesday, joined by Mr. Stan Deo from standeo.com. He is the real Indiana Jones, as my dad likes to call him. Him and his wife, Holly, have put together a lifetime of work from their books, Holly's Dare to Prepare to Stan's Cosmic Conspiracy. Those are two of the best books you can have on preparedness and on understanding of the times we live in.
And when you were sick, Joe, I sent Holly a picture and a link to a video that features this dapper man. I couldn't believe it. 1977, I believe it was, 76, 77, 78, in that time period. And I'm looking at this guy, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I know him. And he's talking and giving this lecture about or giving this interview about anti-gravitic craft. And here it is, a very dapper Mr. Stan Dale. I just, I haven't gotten permission by either one to put up that video, but it was just great to see.
Well, good evening, guys.
Hey, brother, how you doing?
Good. Yeah, that clip you were talking about is part of the TV show, the first one I ever did, about what I was doing with Dr. Teller's group. And it was before I wrote the Cosmic Conspiracy book in 78. It was made by Channel 9 as part of a UFO documentary they filmed with myself and some of the leading lights in the UFO industry at the time. And after the show went to air, it was the most popular documentary they'd had in the history of the TV program. So a publishing company over in Melbourne got a hold of me and said I needed to write the book. And so they loaned me a few editors and stuff and ghostwriters, and burned out 2 writers, and a couple of editors threw up their hands. And so finally I had to do the book myself. But that video was taken just a few blocks away from the Channel 9 studios in Perth, and then incorporated into the documentary. It was about an hour-and-a-half documentary, and I got the last 20 minutes or so of it. So that was, you're seeing the start of, a long march through time for me, and across half the planet, I guess. But that's where it all kind of began, was in that interview there. Well,
I'll tell you what, it was an interesting. I watched whoever. Now, obviously, we didn't post it, so a listener had sent it to us and to me, and to Joe and I, and we watched it and separated, I think, 8 parts. But really, cutting edge stuff. I thought at the time, or I was trying to envision, listening to disco music, and then watching this and get myself into the time period. So very good, very informational, and you were. It was just great how, and you had that. I don't know. It was just a great video to see.
Well, thank you for that. It's part of I did through permission from Channel 9 there in Perth. I did make 1,000 DVDs, copies of their show, going back probably 10, 12 years, and what you saw there was what somebody lifted off the DVDs and put onto the YouTube. It's been there for a long time in pieces, we had Steven Spielberg on there, and Dr. Alan Hynek, had a lot of people that are well known in the UFO research field. It was quite a name-dropping type cast of characters in that. One of these days I might get permission to release the originals again, but before I do that, I'll probably release the what's it called, the Nikola Tesla story, or the documentary I did on him. It's called what was it called? It was originally called Cosmic Conspiracy, relating to Tesla, which was a part of the Cosmic Conspiracy book, but eventually it was called Eye of the Storm, and it was my first venture into hosting a documentary, mainly on Nikola Tesla's work and his relatives and all kinds of stuff. It was quite an interesting trip over into Belgrade, into Yugoslavia, behind the Iron Curtain at the time. One of those fun trips that Indiana Deo took.
I love it. Folks, if you haven't gotten it already, please, I would direct you to Stan Deo's website and click on the Christmas specials. I'm just so excited. The lectures and interviews of Stan Deo, Volume 1, what a fantastic lecture series. Anyone in your life would be just, folks, anyone that you've got in your life that's awake would just be so, I believe, so blessed to receive that for, if you're gifting, this year as a gift. Fantastic series.
Yeah, they probably better do that reasonably soon. I think the sale ends this week. We've had it on for about 2 weeks before this, and trying to give everybody a freebie with that video we got from Ngoro Crater, of course, where the Garden of Eden was and is, and so we're giving that away as part of the special with the purchase of the lecture series, the Volume 1, where we talk about my discovery of the Garden of Eden. It's quite a rush to have discovered it back in June this year. But anyway,
I love that, and let me just plug this too, because I think people need to know this. Dare to Prepare is probably one of the most, it is the most comprehensive preparation books out there, written by Holly Dale. Case lots of 8 copies. You can save almost over 40% off retail. And why not buy a case, folks, and then give them out to your friends and family, those who you care about for preparation of things to come. And people have questions, that'll answer them all. But there we have the close of the infomercial, but not really. Look, it's stuff that helps people. And that's the way I look at it. If it helps you, if it helps one person out there, that's all I care about. So, Stan, what's on your radar today? I mean, where do we start?
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I just didn't know I was messing around with my equalizer here, and I didn't know whether it bit into the...
Oh, you sound like me now. I'm twisting dials and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, actually, one of the things that's caught my interest, and it's been the last 24 hours, has been the Bardarbungar volcano over in Iceland. If you go to our website, standeo.com, and then scroll down just a couple of inches over the right where the picture of the microphone is, go to the Show Images page, and you will see that there's a link on there in the top line on the left to the Icelandic volcano, and you need to go there and have a look at the second live camera. They're both about 25 miles away from the main volcanic eruption there, but one camera is stable, but there's you can see a lot of like magma coming up out of the thing and making a big kind of plume. But the second camera, which is not always online, but fairly close to the other one, is really vibrating with whatever's happening in the surface of Iceland there. There are a number of interesting things on the links that I have there that you can go see about Bartabunga. And I think it would be worth your while to go to the second Bartabunga camera on the live webcams that I have the links to, and just watch the thing vibrating. It'll jar your teeth. So something is happening there. There's a number of earthquakes over Richter 4 in the last 48 hours. And you can see that on the links there on the site.
Oh. I see the vibration of the second one there. What you're talking about.
It's kind of jittery, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very active. Wow.
Well, volcanoes are certainly a sign of changes in the surface of the Earth when they start to erupt all over the place. I haven't seen anything at Yellowstone. I check that every day, and it's been relatively quiet, and all the seismometers, or at least that's what they're releasing, and I haven't seen signs of any major activity there, so I suppose people around the area can rest easy for a while.
I understand, before you go on beyond the Bartabunga volcano.
Oh, okay.
What would be? Let's just say this thing just went Mount St. Helens on all of us. Okay. What would be the collateral damage here? Aside, to the entire globe, we'll say. Would there be what would happen? Aside from the obvious, or maybe is the obvious enough?
Well, the obvious would be, first of all, it would interrupt or impact flights from Europe to America and vice versa across the northern hemisphere. The prevailing winds would throw the ash around the northern pole, spiraling up toward the North Pole, but also spreading some of it to, in fact, a considerable amount of the ash to Europe if they were to have a major eruption. Right now you're getting a lot of smoke and hiss and fizz, and that's about it. But the other side of it would be that you'd have a global winter, a nuclear winter occur if you had a major eruption and it blocked the sunlight, or at least a portion of it. Then our crops would fail. And certainly this would not be good because people go hungry when we don't have sunlight to grow the crops. I'm just checking this Bartabunga. The second camera still got jitters. I hadn't seen that before. In fact, a lot of the time the second camera's server is down, so I don't know why it's got all this extra traffic on it, but there it is. If you go to their sites, there are a number of them. I haven't got all the links up still for the bulging, but there are links where you can look up the Bardarbung volcano and look up bulge, and you'll see some other data that will come up showing you the earthquakes and the depths of them over the last 48 hours, which again supports my concern with what's happening there. But that's only Iceland's volcano, and I don't see that a lot of other volcanoes are threatening. Certainly in Central America, northern portion of South America, there have been rumblings in volcanoes there, and there's certainly been more quakes. But as yet, I can't see anything to be exceptionally concerned about. Certainly, the Icelandic thing is a bit of a puzzle to everyone. But they're certainly putting out a lot of new data and visual images and animations and webcam stuff on that site. So globally, people are quite interested in that. I would suggest that people keep an eye on it.
Wow. I'm looking at the camera here, and obviously it doesn't translate well via audio, radio type thing, but Something's percolating there.
Yeah. Now, I've over the last couple of shows, last couple of weeks with you, I've talked about this General Qasem Soleimani, an Iraqi general, and he fought against the United States and certainly has held his ground and is still the leader of the underground resistance there in Iraq. But the interesting thing about this guy is that he is still considered like a messiah to Iraq. They say he's just magic because he's defeating ISIS, and certainly he was played a major role in defeating ISIS in Diyala, in the Kurdistan region. I think that's where that is. But keep an eye on this guy as the leading contender for Antichrist in that area. Not the false prophet, but the Antichrist. He's an Iranian, but he's been, he's being hailed by Iraqis as, their hero. And obviously anybody that fights against ISIS is going to get the vote of a lot of other major players in the world, because ISIS is an eyesore or a pain in the eye to everyone. So keep an eye on General Qasem, it's Qasem Soleimani, Soleimani. He has not gone away. He is almost in the news every 2 or 3 days. His recent, about 2 days ago, his recent save of Baghdad from ISIS is really putting him in the limelight with favorable reviews from the Iraqis as well as people in Iran. I wonder what's going to happen next with him. But anyway, that's the quote-unquote savior of Iraq at the moment, and even though he's an Iranian. So keep an eye on him, and I think that's about all I wanted to do on that. Yeah. We got to keep an eye on the U.S. dollar as well. Things are very precarious at the moment, and probably after Christmas, early January, we may see some major corrections in the value of the U.S. dollar, and hence in the cost of all imports. Sorry, what were you saying, Joe?
Oh, I just wanted to chime in and ask you, Stan. I see an article here from the L.A. Times. Banks loosen lending standards to levels seen before financial crisis. And it says the largest banks have lowered their standards for some of the riskiest lendings. And this is a sign that was seen returning to levels just before the 2008 financial crisis. I talked with Chance, the owner of American Survival Wholesale, earlier, who pointed out to me also that gas prices are at a low that they were hovering around before the collapse in 2008 as well. Is this what you're alluding to here? Is this correction?
Yeah.
These signs being
I think
a part of that?
Correction's coming. Yeah,
okay.
I think it's all part of that, Joe. And if this correction goes over the edge of a cliff, we're going to see a major adjustment in the share markets. And if banks are threatened with going under because of the way that I talked about last week, that they've put a bill forward in the Congress here to have banks be able to invest in corporations that are not part of the bank, but corporations that have guaranteed deposits by the FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Company, FDIC. Because of this, the banks can kind of, if that bill passes, the banks can then kind of say, well, look, we can invest money willy-nilly. We can invest in derivative markets, and they can collapse, but we're insured by the government. And in the end, of course, you and I are going to pay the bill. So, they're playing crap, at the share market tables legally. And if it does go bad, they don't have to worry about paying the bill. That's just a win-win for them.
It's crazy. Does this what's going on with the U.S. dollar, and we're seeing what's going on with the Russian ruble. How is this, in your estimation, how is this related, if it is, now with this global economy that we've got?
I think the U.S. is going to suffer, the U.S. dollar for sure. And with the ISIS situation, if they don't back off with all the oil that they're dumping on the market, through the black market at low prices, it's going to continue to hit the U.S. dollar. It really depends on what the globalist ultimate plan is for the next few weeks, a couple of months. We know eventually that they're going to drive the United States dollar into the ground rapidly, and when they do, we won't be able to afford all the imports that we eat and stuff like that. I mean, the things we depend on. Our dollar will be so undervalued or so low against the world basket of currencies that even buying food from Mexico is going to be too expensive for people. It's just look for it coming. I mean, if people haven't prepared and haven't bought their freeze-dried food and put it away and stockpile what they need, that might be an import or it might be edible. It might be too late, but Ollie's warned them, you've warned them, I've warned them. All kinds of people have warned over the last 10, 15 years that people need to get supplies put away rather than money in the bank, because it's just going to go to zero when the U.S. dollar collapses.
That's what frightens me. You know what, Finn? Let me ask you a question. We're sitting at the kitchen table, each having a cup of tea or coffee, whatever. And I get this question still, and I'm not passing judgment on the people asking this question, but if you had a mortgage that was, $50,000, and you had $50,000 in the bank in a savings account, what would you do? Would you pay off the mortgage, so you're out of debt, or because the debt's not going to go away when the dollar collapses, right? I mean, is that what would you do?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're going to. Let me tell you what Holly and I did. We pulled out the stops, pulled in the belt to maybe 3 years back, and we finally paid off our mortgage, and so that it's we own the property now, and checked it out to be sure that we had a clear title to it. But even that's not a guarantee, because whoever runs the country, if our democracy fails, whoever runs it's going to say, well, you live here by my permission. However, it is better, I think, to own no man, to clear your debt. And I look at the situation. There are people who've got money shoved under the mattress in folding money. They've got money shoved under the mattress in gold, in some form or gold coins or gold bars. Not everyone, but some people. And silver dollars, easily negotiable pieces of silver. Well, now what's going to happen? The banks, when the threat of collapse comes, they're going to shut the banks temporarily, a few days, weeks, and they're going to ration out how much you can draw out of your account per day and per week to live on. And that's assuming, of course, you got anything in your account. When that happens, there's going to be a limit to what you can deposit as well, like the flat currency stuff. If you've got it shoved in the mattress, well, okay. If you have to turn that in, that's probably going to be denied or be limited, because it will affect the balance of the U.S. dollar in circulation. So having that under the mattress will only help if you can convince people around you to take the currency in exchange for goods and services. Gold and silver, well, you may have it in negotiable forms, but when you start to try to trade it, what are you going to trade it for if people won't accept the devaluing U.S. dollar? Then you've got to exchange it for the new digital money that the bank's going to offer everyone to save them, to help them out. And, of course, that's the leading edge of the global one world digital, electronic currency. So you can't change your gold over unless people are willing to take it, for, gasoline or groceries or whatever. And that's going to be a crazy market for a period of weeks while people adjust to the new digital money. And people turning in gold and silver, well, they're going to be marked, as hoarders by the government. And so you're going to have to very carefully unload it or put it into your new digital account if you take the number, which, of course, we're not going to do. So my advice to people is Get what you need now, not the money, not the gold or the silver, but get the things that those would buy. Because no matter how much gold and silver you've got, if you don't have food, you can't eat the gold or silver or paper. And in the end, you've got to have it in a place where you can get to it and use it, which may not be at your house. It may be somewhere else out of the city. That's what you got to look at, the practical side of it. Because gold and silver in exchange for goods and services will only be good for a few weeks, during the transition to the digital, cashless society. It's a hard thing to realize, but in the end, you're probably going to be stuck with what you can pack in the car or on your wagon or whatever and head to the hills. I really expect the Christian community to have to, real Christians, to have to get out of their homes and their cities and probably leave a lot of the stuff they've packed into home there when the crisis hits. But, that's just my guess, my estimate.
That paints a very dire picture, but I think an accurate one nonetheless. So when the crisis does happen and we see it coming here, we don't know when it's going to be, but certainly it feels sooner rather than later, given all of the signs that we're seeing. Yeah. The $50,000 that Aunt Martha's got stuffed in her mattress in $5 bills or $20 bills or whatever. It's not going to be. It's really not going to be worth much then, right? I mean, is what you're saying.
No, and there's going to be controls on how much you can turn in and cash in. I'm sure when the crisis hit, it's like in the Weimar, the Weimar Republic, when the mark, the German mark, just went crazy, and it took a whole wheelbarrow full of marks to buy a loaf of bread, and when rampant inflation hits, your $20 notes you're talking about shoved under the mattress are going to become less and less useful. It'll force people into this digital currency, because the powers that be, the banks and the international community that's behind it, will say, look, we realize your dollar's devaluing, and it's not only you in America, it's all over the planet. Things are hurting, so we're going to offer you a temporary solution. We're going to give you so many digital credits for the money you had to stabilize your buying power. Don't you think that's a good idea, folks? Yeah, okay, fine. Sign here and take the number there eventually. But that'll be down the road, probably a few months to a year or two, I think, before they get to that stage. So we've got time in between there to make arrangements for where we're going to hold up and endure until the good Lord comes for us.
Interesting.
Whatever that is.
Yeah, and I love having these discussions, and I'm sure people listening to this too, because we do talk about all of these eventualities, and as if we're sitting at the table with our family, just being frank, being open, honest, and look, we've got the storm coming bearing down on us, and we need to prepare. It's
this is an ideas thing, isn't it? I mean, we're trying to share information and thoughts about how to deal with potentially what's right around the corner, and none of us are in charge of the absolute answer to what to do for every family. I mean, it's just you trust the good Lord and do the best you can, and hold your breath.
My wife and I were talking, and even Joe and I were talking about this. We just wonder how many Thanksgivings, how many Christmas holidays, how many 4th of Julys normal that we've got left, and it just seems like, number one, it seems like time is accelerating, and number two, it seems like things are getting just so frumpy and so odd that I can't answer that, and I wonder. My wife and I were talking the other day. So much has happened to us, by the way, in 2014. As we were unpacking some items that we hadn't seen for a year, I asked her. I said, "You remember what our life was like on, we'll say, January 1st of 2014 versus what it is now, and all the changes that we've seen, personal and global and international." And that's kind of an awesome thing to think about.
Oh, this 2014, the changes have just been enormous in number, and astonishment. I mean, I agree. I mean, we've sat around, we've wondered, is this our last Thanksgiving together? Is this our last Christmas? And I'm sure a lot of other folks that are aware are saying the same thing right along with us. I'm relying on the good Lord to tell us, each of us, what we're supposed to be doing, when we're supposed to do it.
Amen. Stan, I have a few questions for you from listeners. One, I didn't grab the name here, but there was a third gas field found off of Israel the other day. I'm not sure if you were familiar with this or if you heard about this.
Yeah.
How significant is this in looking at prophecy of the Bible and what it talks about how Israel will become a land rich in oil in the last days?
The toe of Asher will be dipped in oil. Is that the way it reads? The big discovery, the big announcement is yet to come on Israel's oil and gas. They have enough gas in this new field. It's over 3 trillion cubic feet of gas, and they could be selling it to their Arab neighbors and to Lebanon or whatever. They could be selling it to them if it weren't for the political ramifications of dealing with Israel. So they are energy rich in that respect there in gas already. And where there's gas, somewhere nearby, there's oil. And it's such a huge field. Now that's out in the Mediterranean offshore there. It's such a huge field that I am reasonably certain that the oil field is the one that the rabbis told me about, that is on land underneath Israel, deep. It's probably down about 5 miles. But once drilled, it will supply oil in huge amounts. It'll be bigger than all the oil fields in the Middle East, because the majority of the Arab oil fields around Israel are getting oil from that reservoir underneath Israel because of the pressure in the oil field, and it's pushing it up into the upper levels of the surface there of the earth. And so the Arabs have been digging in for years, drilling into the shallow feeds coming from that deep oil field that sits underneath Israel. So technically, they are already using oil out of Israel's undiscovered or unannounced, shall we say, oil field deep underneath it. And I think the oil that field may actually be underneath the northern side of the plain of Jezreel there, or where the Armageddon conflict will take place. It's on the north side of that battlefield there. Anyway.
So is that the spoil that's discussed, perhaps, or one of the spoils?
I think so. Let's face it. Oil, energy is the lifeblood of the global industrial complexes. And, it's the energy to keep everything turning around and to, drive your tanks and to keep your people happy and fed and watching TV. All this is extremely important to keeping the people of the planet quiet and happy, in our new 1984 here in 2015. So, it's extremely important, and it would be a spoil. But, the Bible has made it quite clear that there will be a massive turn of events for Israel, which will make it extremely rich. And I'm pretty sure it's on the basis of the oil underneath, and so are the rabbis. The problem has been they've had information about location about only that one I'm talking about, but this one, the gas fields, they've had that for a number of decades, or the suspicion of it. And for the oil field that actually is deep, they can't technically do it without declaring war, in essence, against their Arab neighbors. The Arabs have said, if you start pulling oil out of that thing where we're getting our oil, then it's a declaration of war because you're stealing our oil. And of course, if you're being realistic about it, the oil field is under Israel, and so the question becomes, how deep does something go? How deep does it have to be to belong to the country above it? And so it would just start a huge war if Israel were to start tapping that deep reservoir, which the Arab oil wells are already tapping at up higher and not down low where it actually exists. I don't know. It's a nightmare. It is just a nightmare.
Understood. Jenna, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask a second question. This is right up your alley, Stan. I know you talked about this several times in the past. This is an email from Frank, and he points out the possibility of a pole shift. Wanted me to ask your thoughts on the possible pole shift in the magnetic Earth changes, how they're intensifying, and he points to a report. It is the oxfordjournals.org, and it's an archive of all online content from 1958 to 2015, and it talks about, in their latest publication, that there's a possibility now for a pole shift more so than ever before in history due to their calculations and timing of this. This is the Geophysical Journal for International Studies, I believe.
It's probably measuring what they call the geodetic vertical component of the changes in the shape of the Earth, in the vertical changes. And certainly those maps do indicate that there are some impressive changes in various spots around the planet over the last even 15, 20 years, where the gravitational constant changes, where the mass constants change. It could be that this is the beginning of a physical pole shift, but at this moment, I'm saying that the one that we can be reasonably certain about is the magnetic pole change inversion. That is probably closer and more probable than the physical, upheaval of the Earth, turning the Earth upside down relative to the sun. I think it's going to be the magnetic field internally, which has already started to split, so that we have two norths and two souths floating around inside the planet right now. As that accelerates, certainly other things connected to the surface of the Earth and how it's oriented toward the sun may be affected by, drag vectors and stuff on the magma inverting inside the planet in the core. I suppose this could, in the long term, affect the physical, poles and cause them to flip upside down or to wobble greatly. Certainly, we've been seeing, little shudders here and there, and with the sinkholes increasing in number, I'm thinking that we're seeing the planet about to undergo some significant change in its diameter as part of a natural aging process for the planet. That all this connected together could do things that we can only guess at as far as the timing and the interaction. It's just the questions that people are asking are just very difficult to answer accurately because of the lack of data and understanding of what data we do have.
Okay. And yeah, it's I completely understand that. It's rough to answer. Well, this one might be a little bit easier. I mean, it's interesting. I think it says a lot. I think it's me when I saw this. I just thought of one word, and that word is conditioning. Jenna writes and asks about the. In fact, this is earlier today. I can't find the email, but basically, what do you think about the independent? I think it was in the London Independent or UK Independent. NASA finding evidence of life on Mars. Independent UK. One of the instruments on the robot on mysterious spikes of methane that they cannot be easily explained by geology or other theories, and and now if the gas is coming from living, breathing microbes, then it would mark one of the biggest discoveries in history. So now the scientists have said that the rover has now the rover now has to test and retest the possibility of life on Mars your thoughts on this, Stan?
Yeah, they're talking about the test results coming in, or the data results coming in from Curiosity, the rover Curiosity. It is another one of those problems where even the scientists analyzing the data are trying to figure out how to say that the increased methane, density around the Curiosity, the rover, how that's produced. Is it due to outgassing from some kind of a methane hydrate or class rate, underneath the surface of Mars? Why is it happening just around Curiosity? Is it surface organic material, living material, producing it in the soil surface? Is it deep microbes, or is it olivine rock with water producing the methane? It's a chemical reaction. It's not organic at all. Photochemistry of some sort. And if that's the case, I'd be thinking, I wonder if the photochemistry is actually, interfacing with some kind of a living thing that we don't know about. But there are no leaves or trees or, things that we would normally associate with converting frequencies of light from the sun into, living material, whether it be plant life or microbes. So I think they're going to have to figure out some other clever method of determining the source of the methane. It might be possible to do that with by looking at various trace elements, potassium and carbon and stuff relative to the rock formations around them, and trying to differentiate between living organisms and the geology of the Martian surface, the soil and rock. It's interesting. It's funny that she mentioned that, because that was the next thing I was going to talk about anyway, because, I did see the news releases from NASA on this. But, even NASA being very cautious about saying, okay, that proves life on Mars. And they may know a lot more than they're letting on. But, again, this lack of real information, truthful information, is what just drives us nuts,
Yeah. It just seems to me, well, all the signs seem to be pointing towards some sort of level of disclosure of some kind, whether it's measured and choreographed, dedicated to a certain conclusion. It's just to me, it's difficult to process without looking at this through the prism of biblical prophecy and even deception. But that's what I feel anyway. I think that we're being ready for something, the deception.
Yeah, I know. And this is going to happen as we think we figured it out. This deceptive interface with a super race or whatever. It's going to be very soon. It has to be, with all the stuff that's coming out in the movies and the threat curves around the planet that are just looming. Whether we've got Ebola or not, the threat of it has been played up in the press, extraordinarily. And, I think in time it will hit, or something equivalent to it will hit, whether it be weaponized, viruses or whatever. But that threat is there. The threat of economic collapse is more present, more probable now, as we discussed just a few minutes ago with Joe, more probable now than it has been since 2008. And with ISIS acting up in the Middle East, with Iran sitting on top of nuclear, material that could be a bomb, and with a missile system to deliver it, with the crazy weather and food shortages, with drought hitting a lot of places on the planet to produce food, including California, even though it's got the flooding now. All these crisis curves are coming to a head right now, more so than they have before at the same time. So that tells us that we must be getting very close to the moment that the globalists, Satan himself, who's probably behind a lot of the globalist activities, will make their move to convince the people of Earth they need help from, our quote-unquote elder brothers from space. And, watching the Vatican do its dance with, alien brothers can be saved and this kind of stuff, it is just making my jaw drop. I mean, I just cannot believe I'm hearing this stuff.
I know, I totally agree. And, invoking once again this kind of a kitchen table kind of conversational atmosphere, I just, looking at all of these dots as clues on this global, this global picture, this three-dimensional picture that connect the dots, we're seeing a lot of dots that we're being able to connect. And I think you're right. Do you think the globalists have I don't want to say a drop-dead date, but a date in which they've got in mind that they want to accomplish all of their objectives, or at least advance their agenda? Is there a date that they might have?
Well, they certainly may know one by now, a date or a season. I know that this has been in progress since the middle 18th century, with Adam Weishaupt and people like that starting the ball rolling. And now then, here we are several generations later, getting close to completing what these globalists and their ancestors have been planning for, several hundred years. I can understand what their objective is, but it also incorporates them controlling the entire planet under one ruler, and that has always been their objective, to then stop war and to stop inequalities, and everyone will behave just like George Orwell's 1984 scenario. So I don't know whether they know a date. I mean, Orwell, of course, picked 1984, but it's somewhat. It reminds me of Atlas Shrugged, Ayn Rand's book, because she was associated with Lord Rothschild, who was, of course, one of the leading globalists that we talk about. And even then, they were looking at isolating energy and energy production from the people, from the individual, so they could control the flow of energy across the planet and hence everybody's life. In the end, digital money or flat money or paper money or whatever will be exchanged for usages of energy in different forms. And if you look at it now, that's what we do. And so when they control the digital money and the flow of energy through their, magic devices that are like free energy, what we would call free energy, when they've got that, they've got us right by the short and curlies. And that's just got to be soon the way things are shaping up. I think 2015 and the next two blood moons that occur, of course, 2015, will be significant.
That was the other question I had. I was looking at my email, and Ken wanted your comments on the final blood moons in 2015 with all these things that are happening, asking for your, predictions is the word he used. Who could predict? But I think we can reasonably speculate based on evidence and based on events and documentation and signs and stuff. But asking you to kind of project into 2015, and do you think a year from now we'll be talking like this, or will the conversation be totally different a year from now, do you think?
I'm wondering if we're going to be able to have a conversation like this in a year's time, whether it will be legal or whether we'll have the country and the infrastructure we have now to make it possible. I mean, we know that they're trying to replace the Internet we know today with one completely controlled by the emerging world government. This ISIS situation, certainly in the Middle East, and I'm sure we'll see some activity here in the States eventually, will move people toward accepting anyone who can form a global government that brings order out of this chaos.
I thought of you too with the Sydney hostage situation.
Yeah.
to me, all of these, including what happened in Pakistan, and we devoted the first part of our show talking about this, people will be crying for some sort of unity under a religion that I think people are going to be, they're going to be told that, look, we all worship the same God, although that's not true. We all do, and we need to have peace, and the only way to have peace is to kind of come to some sort of understanding, and that understanding is going to necessitate, what would you call it, erroneous beliefs. And I just think I think these are being managed. These situations are being managed to that end. Any thoughts? I mean, being from Australia, being down there for a while, what are your thoughts on the?
My thought. Well, let's see. The first thing I thought of when they told me about the siege and of the hostages, I thought, gee, taking all the weapons away, that sure worked, didn't it, down there? No guns. Hey, it stopped all the terrorist activities. Not so. It proves the point. You take the guns away from the individuals to defend themselves, and the only people that have weapons then are either the police or criminals who have access to black market weapons. They don't care about the law. And then you have terrorists like this. I mean, I just shook my head and I said, this is crazy. I mean, Australia, it went so socialist. Long before I left, I saw it happening, and I just thought, wow, how can a people let their country be taken over like that? And then I turned around and looked at us here. I thought, oh, that's how.
Yeah, exactly. And I got to say, you know what would have stopped that guy with a shotgun walking into that cafe? Would be 12 patrons with concealed weapons. That would have stopped them.
Well, you'd think so, yeah.
But no, the Marxist progressives, idiots. I'm sorry, Stan. In this country and in other countries, all guns. We can't have that. Somebody might get hurt. Come on, man. I got an email today, and this was a genuine question asking if Christians should give up their guns, and I said no and hell no.
Yeah,
that's my view anyway.
Well, it's mine too, and I know some of the guys here in the sheriff's department and on the police department here where I live, and I'm thinking if they come up to my door, these people that I know or have met and whatever, and they say we want your guns. Am I going to shoot my friend or acquaintance who's doing his duty or what? It's. I guess you tell them to come back with a warrant, and they do, and then you get shot. I guess that's where it's heading. I don't know. I wrestle with this as well. I mean, I've got friends in the DA's office, and I've got friends in the sheriff's department. I've got friends in the police department, and I don't. But the one thing that I'll say is I've had conversations with our municipal police people within the municipal police departments, and I have not found one cop. It's not like I know 20. Okay, I'm friends probably with maybe 3, 4 of them, and out of the 3 or 4 people, they're all of the same mindset. No, I'm not going to do that. If they ask us to confiscate guns, I'm not going to do that. So there is some hope, but then again, what about the other 96 or 98 police officers of the force? Even if all of those other 96% or whatever you're talking about agreed with the 3 or 4 you're talking about that you've met, the problem is the government of the world, like the United Nations type thing that's going to become the world government, all they have to do is step in with international troops and disempower the local sheriffs and police departments, make them, globalized and take away the people that you know and replace them with people that you don't know and probably don't even speak your language well. But
you know what, Stan? I got to say this, and this is just me talking, and it's not bravado, but I'll tell you something. I would have an easier time shooting someone I didn't know, certainly from another country, wearing a different uniform, knocking on my door, beating my door down, than a friend of mine.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think the majority of us that have worked this through have come to that conclusion. Maybe the people we know that are police and sheriff now will join with us, and maybe there'll be pockets of resistance that will stop this encroachment. But all I can see is civil war here. Just civil war.
That's the way it's looking. And Stan, I got a question from a friend, Mary. She wants to know, and this is something I haven't heard about, if the monster storm they say will hit California has the possibility to set off any tectonic plates or create earthquakes, or the potential for earthquakes.
Now, which monster storm are they talking about? The one that's coming reasonably quickly?
She just said the monster storm, and as I said, I'm not familiar here, so let me pull up the Weather Channel.
Any monster storm? Does a monster storm above the Earth's surface have the capability of perhaps changing the dynamics under the surface, I suppose?
Well, it could. If it's say releasing a lot of water into the fault lines, it may lubricate fault lines that have been stuck for a while. But look at it. We've been drawing so much water up out of the artesian supplies in California, because of the prolonged drought. You suddenly get water. Does it lubricate it, or does it break the empty cavern, the space underneath the state, because of what we've drawn out? I wonder, if nothing happens at all, how long will the surface of California be stable? Because of the reduced water presence underneath. It produces cavities, small as they might be, but still it makes the rock porous without water to support the weight of the people and industry on top of California.
They say that the rain,
as far as electrical,
the rain that's happened there, the rain that has been pouring down on California has been creating mudslides, even though the drought was at one of the highest categories, covering over 80% of the state. It goes on to say that there was a few inches of rain, left 13 reports of mudslides from San Francisco Bay Area down to Monterey County. And there are these more heavy rainstorms coming in, one bringing an additional 2 inches of rain with higher amounts locally into the latter part of this week into the weekend. They're also expecting lots of snow in the mountains and higher elevations, and they're saying that from the drought to getting a abundance of moisture, and this is from the Weather Channel, that it could lead to unstable conditions as far as land that is not on, as you were talking about, doesn't have that foundation. If it has, cracks, crevices, problems with the water seeping in, as you said, that can create huge problems. And looking from some of the images of the issues it already has created, these landslides and things could continue to get worse. Yes, I can see how with the listeners asking, and it could increase the chances of earthquakes. But more importantly,
well, it is redistributing.
Yeah, go ahead.
More importantly, what?
No, I was going to say more importantly, the way it could change the landscape of the coast of California. Most people, the population, live on the coast, and that's where the most damage could be done.
Well, look at this water coming in such a short space of time, and as you say, it's been drought conditions. This liquefies a lot of the surface, dirt, and that's why you get the landslides. And when you think about it, that does redistribute the weight on the California section of the plate. And of course, so many fault lines run parallel to the San Andreas and running up into the Juan de Fuca plate. That when you have that much rain redistributing mass and including itself, this makes it a very precarious situation. It's something I hadn't addressed before, but in thinking about it here just now, it definitely could be a trigger mechanism if there is and of course there is one, if there is a a locked plate situation underneath California along the major fault lines there. And if that lubrication or if that weight distribution is such that it releases the lock on the two plates, gone.
Wow. Just thinking about that, the magnitude of that statement is enough to make you shudder, I suppose. I don't know. I mean,
well, it's going to make us all shudder because you might say, well, that's just California, but that's also a huge percentage of our food production in the United States as well. So,
very true.
That.
Very true. Well, any more good news to share, Stan? I mean, as we're kicking back.
Gosh, no, I guess that's all I can do for the moment.
Can you share?
The vibrations from camera 2 seem to have slowed down a little bit.
No, that's you just switching to decaf, Joe.
Oh Lord, I tell you what, you do have to kind of laugh at this and deal each day at a time. And
well, I got to ask you this, Stan. In closing, we got such a great response from your sharing your oopsies, young man stories about putting rockets through ceilings and
the
such.
neighbors' houses.
Yeah. Anything else to share with us that maybe you want to just now understand, of course, Stan, the statute of limitations have expired, so go ahead and feel free.
That's good, because what I'm going to tell you, they might have come after me for this, but in high school, science, chemistry, physics, they were my fun subjects, and I was reasonably good at it, probably the best. But anyway, as a result,
I wanted to be your lab partner. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, let me tell you, there were a lot of them that joined me in the final exams in our physics class because our teacher, Mr. Minnick, he had a good sense of humor, but he said, look, somebody asked him there while we were in class one day, can we have any kind of like little cheat sheets with formulas on it, for the final exam, because how can we remember all these physics formulas? He said, yeah, you can have a cheat sheet, 4 inches by 6 inches, index card, written on one side and the edges. And he thought he was being cool about that, right? And we said, is that your final word on? Yeah. He said, you can have that. So I went home, and my dad had a laboratory and a photocopier. And I made a huge, page, bigger than 4 by 6 inches for sure. Every formula in the book and everything that would be allowed for the final exam, and photo reduced it down to a 4 by 6 inch index card and had it run off on the Xerox. Brought him back in on the day of the final, and I said, will this do, Mr. Minnick? He says, clever boy. I said, yeah, okay, $1 a piece. And I made a fortune that day.
Oh, I love that.
But it didn't stop there. During the year, Mr. Minnick, he and I got along quite well, and we all had projects to do for the course. And my particular project was figuring out a way to titrate emeralds out of chemical solutions by adding base compounds to acidic compounds to make them crystallize out little emeralds. And I was starting to get results, little things you'd see in the microscope of little emeralds growing in my thing. And Mr. Minnick came to me one day on a Friday, and he says, look, we've just got our new vacuum pump in. We've been waiting for this for a couple of years, and we got the budget, and here it is in the back room. He says, now, if you'll put your solution, pull a vacuum on it with this, it'll make the process go quicker without boiling it, and you'll grow the emeralds quicker. So he left me to it there that afternoon and said, hook it up here, and so I did, and came back in Monday, having left it there to run over the weekend, and I meet Mr. Minnick with a kind of look of thunder on his face, and I knew something was wrong. I wasn't sure exactly what, and he took me to the back, and he says, do you see what's going on here? I said, well, nothing. The pump is off. You turned it off. He said, no, I didn't turn it off. It just stopped. And he says, let me show you what the inside of the pump looks like. And he unscrewed a couple of screws on the side of it and opened the panel. And the insides kind of fell out like jelly onto the top of the workbench there. Oh, I said, what caused that? He said, well, you had hydrofluorosilicic acid in your jar, which I knew about. He said, but you didn't put an intermediate baffle to keep it, the vapor from going into the pump, and you dissolved the inside of the pump. And I thought, oh, Lord, I'm dead. But anyway, I survived.
Oh, man. Okay. You know, I think I understand that. Okay, so.
Anyway, acid ate inside the pump when I didn't put a trap in between my experiment and that, and I didn't know you were supposed to either. So, anyway.
No. Who paid the bill?
I guess the school did. Okay. I don't know that they would hit my dad because it was experiment authorized by Mr. Minnick. But
yeah, I understand that. Well, that is great. Growing emeralds, I'm trying to envision that in my head.
Well, there are several ways to do that. Nature does it with heat and vapor deposited on a crystal that forms. The microscopic emerald is a hexagonal crystal, and you have to have chromic oxide. I think chromic oxide number 2, and you have aluminum oxide and silicon dioxide and beryllium oxide, in the proportions that are necessary. They come up out of out of a volcano, and these things get stirred together down there and blown up into the air, and they cool on the way down, forming kind of a ball shape that hits the ground like a geode. The difference is that when you break it open after it's cooled, if you let it cool over several years, slowly, will be a chunk of emerald. And in some places, the gases coming up out of a volcanic vent will deposit on the walls of the vent up toward the surface and make large, sometimes 6-foot-long beryllium crystals, which are, a form of emerald, and clusters of them that same way. So you can do it that way. I mean, just following nature. And a man by the name of Chatham, back in the mid to late 1950s in California, I think he was, Chatham. He managed to grow emeralds using heat and pressure in pressurized metal containers, where he sped up the process. And his sons were playing on the living room floor in the magazine article I saw with emeralds that were the size of lemons. Perfect. There was not a flaw in them. Now, years passed, and of course I tried to do the emeralds as a student, and later as an adult I played with it a bit and then gave it away because of the danger from the beryllium oxide. It's a terrible, terrible toxin. And Chatham went on to make Chatham Gemstones, the company where they make brown diamonds. They make emeralds, rubies, sapphires, all using his process and variations of it. And I contacted the company a few years back, and Mr. Chatham had on his desk, he had a 50-carat chunk of emerald crystals, from one of the tests they were doing growing the emeralds. And when I told him what I'd been doing over the years and following his dad's research and stuff, he had his office send me, a chunk of 50 carats worth of, actually 55 carats worth of emerald. But I was really pleased with it and thanked him for it and had it.
Wow.
Well, the value of it today, I mean, it's not like, zillions of dollars, just a few $100, but it was just the thought of these man-made emeralds off the desk of the guy that was kind of my hero in doing all this that was really good, and I had it set into a piece of jewelry for Holly to wear. And they found it was such a popular item, they're now selling those clusters. They out of the tanks. They're small crystals, but all clustered together like sugar crystals almost, except they're emeralds. And they're selling those for a couple $100, for little chunks of them like that. But anyway.
Well, Stan, I got to tell you, my meth lab is producing more income than that. So. Just kidding.
I didn't know that. I'm certainly glad. The statute of limitations hasn't run out on that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, watch now. I'm kidding, right, folks? Okay, I don't need people busting through my door tonight. Oh, my. Oh my goodness.
How about tomorrow?
Or tomorrow, or the next day. Okay, it was a joke. Yeah. Oh, they'll isolate that audio and kill me.
Yeah, we could talk next show or something on some experiments I did with plant growth and accelerating plant growth with ozone and stuff from electric discharges and, a lot of fun stuff. But
great. Yeah, I loved it. We'd love to hear. There's so many people had written me and said, man, that's just so great to hear you talk about stuff like that. So, yeah, next time. That's great. Stan, we kept you over time, and want to say thank you so much for being part of our show. At this time of year, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we really take inventory, take stock of the people closest to us and most important to us, and you rank up there. Thank you so much for being part of our family. And
hey, thank you for inviting me.
Ollie, God bless you. Thank you.
God bless you now.
All right.
Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.
Folks, I want to Stan Dale from standale.com. If you haven't taken advantage of the lecture series, man, that's just fantastic. And all of these possibilities for the holiday, dare to prepare a case of that. Give them to your family members. You heard Stan, right? We're getting close. We're getting close. We're just getting close.
With that, we're going to go to the top of the hour break. We're going to come back with your phone calls and some more news at 661-244-9839. That is 661-244-9839. We're going to go to a few quick words from our sponsors. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our third and final half hour of this Tuesday edition of the Hagmann Hagmann Report. We went a little bit over with Stan Dale, who is our second hour guest every Tuesday, and a blessing and a friend of the show, him and his wife Holly. We can't thank them enough for all that they do and continue to do for us and our listeners. This last half hour, we're going to hit a few pieces of news and hopefully get to some phone calls. A few stories we did not hit in the first hour that I'd like to just brush on if we could here in the closing of this hour. I mentioned this article to Stan. Banks loosen lending standards to levels seen before 2008 financial crisis. The largest U.S. banks have lowered their standards for some of the riskiest lending. That is now a sign that weak underwriting is returning to levels seen before the 2008 financial crisis.
I'm going to go get me a McMansion.
McMansion. According to a regulator's report, the banks have continued to erode standards, especially in large corporate loans, consumer loans, and in leverage lending, according to an annual office comptroller of the Currency Survey of Examiners released Tuesday. Leveraged lending is the risky financing often used to fund corporate buyouts. As banks continue to reach for volume and yield to improve margins and complete for limited loan demands, supervisors will focus on banks' efforts to maintain prudent underwriting standards, said Jennifer Kelly of the OCC's Chief National Bank Examiner. She said in a statement, she said the trends are very similar to those from 2004 through 2006, as we see one of the many signs that are indicators telling us we are moving up to a time and a condition and situation, putting ourselves in a scenario much like that of 2008 in the financial crisis. And for those who don't remember, the Dow Jones dropped 777 points. Note the 7 or the 3 sevens there. In my mind, the finger of God, before Henry Paulson came on the House floor and stated to the members of Congress that unless they bailed out the banks, that martial law would be enacted the very next day and be ruling the streets of America. I'm sure many of you remember that. Well, any kind of financial collapse we will see now, the 2008 would be a pebble compared to the catastrophic events we would see in a financial crisis in 2014, 2015. What's happening with Russia and the ruble is all about the petrodollar and the reorganization of these international monetary assemblies that are planning for tomorrow, but planning for the end game, the ultimate authority to hold and protect all wealth from every human digitally and control that wealth and the ability for that person to use or to confiscate that wealth. And our debt, approaching $18 trillion, has and will never be able to be paid back. It's a mathematical certainty, or it's a mathematical impossibility that we could ever pay our debt back. Us, meaning you and me, average Americans, and our property are the collateral on that debt. And when will that debt be called in, or when will the collateral for that debt be called in? Another interesting headline here that we need more time to get into. Maybe tomorrow we can.
Before you move on, that everything, just to drive this point home, folks, everything that led up to the crisis of 2008 is now coming back with a renewed vigor. That, I know that's what Joe said, essentially. But the commercial end of this is really something that people have to understand. The toxic mortgages that are being created and then resold. My question to everyone, and listen to me carefully when I ask this question, please. My question is, who in the hell is listening to these people at CNBC, MSNBC, CBS, NBC, ABC, and believing this crap? That it's easier. I mean, it is easier to get a mortgage, no doc, low doc mortgages. To what end? Are people just swallowing this hook, line, and sinker and saying, well, okay, life is good? I guess greed and the love of money, I guess it is true that the love of money is the root of all evil. I guess greed is the aspect here that we're looking at. I guess these bankers, these banksters, these too big to jail people, these people who are going to own not just you and everything you own and your progeny, well, your progeny especially, your sons and daughters and their sons and daughters, you're going to be mortgaged to them forever and subjugated under slavery. Can't people see what's happening here? I guess that's my question. Aren't people seeing what's happening here? If I get a family member coming to my home this season and says, hey, things have never been better, ever been better in the last 6 years. Look, I know it's just not the progressive Marxist mindset, but I'll tell you, oh man, you don't want to be around the dinner table when that happens. Sorry, Joe. Go ahead. I got it out of my system.
All right. I'm going to play a quick clip here. There was an executive memorandum taken today by the president who took an action to protect one of Alaska's most powerful economic engines and one of America's greatest national treasures, Bristol Bay. Here's a quick 1-minute audio clip of what the president said today, and then I'm going to do my best to summarize in a very short time what this means for America and the oil crash we see with the prices and what it means for the future.
Hey.
Top headline on Drudge. Obama issues executive orders by another name. By issuing his directives as memoranda rather than executive orders, Obama has downplayed the extent of his executive actions. Obama has issued another form of an executive action known as the presidential memoranda more often than any other president in history, using it to take unilateral action even as he has signed fewer executive orders. When these two forms of directives are taken together, Obama is on track to take more high-level executive actions than any other president since Harry Truman battled the Do-Nothing Congress almost 7 decades ago, according to USA Today review of presidential documents. Obama has issued executive orders to give federal employees the day off after Christmas, to impose economic sanctions to determine how national secrets are classified. He's used his memorandum to make policy on gun control, immigration, and labor regulations. Tuesday, he used a memorandum to declare Bristol Bay, Alaska, off limits to gas and oil exploration. Now, seeing the prices of oil tanking, seeing the the ruble going down here, the petrodollar involvement in all this, what is going on here is through these fiat laws that have the same force as an executive order, and the consequences are overreaching. Some of the most significant actions have been taken by Obama, despite his own claims that he wouldn't use this executive power. But what he used it for today, to take Bristol Bay and to say it will not be used for any type of oil or gas exploration, he is cutting off the resources and the American and their ability to build their own industry of getting those resources out of the earth and using them. As we see, less oil will be coming from OPEC and from these other nations like Russia. We will have to depend on our own energy independence. But we see Obama has in the past and continues to, in line with other presidents, cut off our own ability to provide ourselves with the energy we need to sustain ourselves. Did I lose anybody yet?
No, actually, you're very coherent, and you're correct. Okay. This is forcing foreign dependency, our energy. And you know that 17-second or that, about 17-second sound clip that we play, it's about the future, Mr. Getz. It's about the future. You know, how much are you worth? I don't know.
Yeah.
If you ask somebody, if I ask you how much...
I have no idea. How much do you want?
No, I just want to know what you're worth. Over $10 million?
Oh, my, yes.
Why are you doing it? How much better can you eat? What can you buy that you can't already afford?
The future, Mr. Getz. The future.
Thank you for playing that. Folks, it's about the future. That clip is from Chinatown, and that's what this is. It is about the future.
Doesn't sound like
future of energy.
Chinatown.
I'm pretty sure that's where it's from.
No, but
that is, man.
And it explains a lot. You know, what these people want is not anything that is attainable by money. They want your souls. When the Lord said Nimrod was a mighty hunter of men's souls, it's also referenced throughout the Old Testament prophets, and when Jesus came and spoke here, that these people, when he chose his disciples, they were fishing, and he says, you know, come with me. I'll make you fishers of men. Well, we have had evil being the fishers of men's souls forever, and the spiritual warfare battle is what some would call a soul trap. They're trying to take your soul from you while you're too worried or too distracted about fighting a physical or earthly battle, or political issue, or even, you know, taking care of your family. They will use any and every issue, situation, emotion, positive or negative, to get in the way of you, reaching your relationship and ability to connect with our Lord and Savior on a personal level, and they will do so until the very last second of their deception is up, because they want your soul, because they don't want to be alone in the lake of fire. They want to bring as many down as possible. And this speaks to the depth of their true evil, trying to lead people into sin. They want people to suffer the same fate as them because they can't be redeemed. When I say they, I mean those angels that were in heaven that have fallen, and Satan being among those, the chief of those, especially named in the scriptures. He wants your soul, and he has stated, Jesus has told us in the scriptures that he demands your soul. He can, plead for your soul, and he is not only doing that, he is accusing the brethren constantly in front of God until he is cast down on earth. So, in summary here, we are not fighting a earthly battle. We are fighting a battle against people who want your souls. They can take your body, they can silence you, they can censor you, they can torture you, but don't give them the ability to take your soul, because that's the only thing they can't take, and it's the only thing you can give away that they can't take.
I don't think I've heard a more bottom line assessment than that. That's it.
Amen.
Okay.
That was actually part of something you and Steve were talking about earlier that I just expanded on a little bit, and just from hearing some of the comments you guys were making to each other about the times we live in, about the level of deception. These people are looking to put people in situations of stumbling, or the stumbling blocks in front of people, so that they, lose focus of what's important, or get off balance of their foundation that they have in their relationship with the Lord, and they will snatch your soul. They're not in it for the money. They're not in it for anything other than the spiritual power they think they will attain by stealing your soul. And you must guard your soul with as much spiritual ammo as you would have physical ammo and guns to defend your family's life.
Amen. And I think exactly. And I just want to reaffirm something I said earlier. This is from an email I got from someone who had said, it's all of this talk of things, it's just not doing anybody any good. It's just spreading fear. And I happen to get emails from, we always have. And it's interesting to say this. I was talking to Steve, and it's interesting when you speak the truth, you get people that are always sniping at you. More than sniping, actually, engaging in slander and libel and all kinds of stuff, and just things that if you read, I've read some pretty incredible junk, and I mean junk on the internet about Steve and about me, and it's junk. It's just totally out and out lies, and it's interesting because the closer to the truth, or the more truth that you do end up spreading, the more people come after you in different ways, And
then you have the spiritual element. The more
that's right.
effective you are in watering those seeds for the Lord, the more the enemy will aim his arrows right at you. So it's a double whammy.
That's right. Yeah, and I think all of us, and even perhaps more helpful than just seeming like I'm complaining, because I'm not. It's just an observation. And in fact, I wouldn't even give the people out there doing this the look. They're so ludicrous. I wouldn't even address these issues and address the people. The people are just so tiny, spiritually tiny, and in my view, perhaps mentally unbalanced to such an extent that they're not even worthy of response. But even more to the point, when you are sitting at your table, or sitting in your living room, or your den, or in your car, or talking to a coworker or a friend, family, whatever the case might be, I think we've got to expect the increase in resistance. I think we have to expect the pushback. I think we have to expect, things going a little bit, becoming nasty. People don't want to hear the truth today. It's just an amazing thing to me. I know a woman who was diagnosed with cancer, and it's a horrible story. And she said, "No, I don't have cancer." Well, the doctor said, "Look, we can treat this, and you've got some quality time left, and let's get ahead of this as best we can, and at least we can take action, give you some quality time. Absent of action, it's not going to end well for you." And she refused to even face the fact that she has cancer. Well, last night about 10 o'clock, she had a seizure. Cancer was in her brain. It metastasized to her brain. It's too late. So, had she addressed the issue 6, 8 months, 10 months ago, maybe it might have been a little bit different, but she was too, no, I don't want to hear the truth. No, I'm not picking on this woman, but I am likening or equating the situation to a lot of people out there. I don't want to hear the truth. Don't tell me, look, you know what? I can go to Best Buy tomorrow and buy a 50, I don't know, a big TV. I can still do that. I can still go to the grocery store and I can buy myself a spiral ham and bring it home and cook it. And I can go to the gas station and buy a gallon of gas or fill up my tank. And in fact, I can fill up my tank much better than I could 6 months ago. Easier. Everything's fine.
Don't worry about the U.S. Special Forces conducting urban training in North Texas or, the multiple military training and maneuver scenarios, urban training drills we've seen just like this in Miami and Chicago and Los Angeles and Tampa. And don't worry about the banks putting together a consolidation of international economic systems that are designed to encompass all the United States. Don't worry about the Army selling all its Humvees to the public for the first time. According to the Army Times, the Department of Defense will start auctioning off as many as 4,000 military-specified Humvees to the public as part of a surplus reduction effort. Now, if you want to be like your local police department, instead of an MRAP, you can get yourself a military-spec Humvee.
I'm going to have to try. Okay, so you think it's going to be more than like $500?
Maybe.
I might have
a junker we could trade in. What about cash for clunkers? Can we get a Humvee? Get the cash for clunkers back to get a Humvee?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Humvees for. It's funny. There's a.
But then you get the privilege class. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. You get the privilege class that essentially can make this right. So
Josh, he owns your son-in-law, my stepbrother, owns the logistics company. Well, that
I know him.
Their office is in the back of a cell phone company, and it used to be a labor, like a job finding company, a cell phone company, and their company. Well, now you know what the sign on the top says? It says free phones. That's what the name of the store is now. Free phones. I didn't know if you noticed that, but I would snap a picture next time.
How can I get one of them free phones?
Right,
I don't even answer.
Humvees.
Yeah.
Prices will start at $10,000. Okay. And owners are responsible for arranging the transportation of their new playthings and paying in full within 3 days of the sale. So
prices start at $10,000, right? So it's going to be the privileged class who end up owning these military spec MRAPs, right?
They say you could turn it into a terrorizing golf cart. They go into a number of interesting ways you could use your new military vehicle. Also,
wait, before you go on, Heidi, thank you for the email. Heidi writes, "Hi guys, that Prudhoe Bay executive action that you were talking about earlier, you know that?" And she writes, "It's another useless paper tiger designed to divert attention, and it's empty as the immigration. It is as empty as the immigration executive action, non-EO, because Atlantic Richfield had already done all of the necessary exploration and drilling and capped the oil gas wells back in the 70s, just waiting for the price of oil to skyrocket, which is going to do once again to about $200 a barrel." She writes, "There's enough gas to provide the U.S. with a 200-year supply and make us a major exporter of oil and gas." And that's just the oil from the North Slope of Alaska.
We've been buying reserves for so long, though. I mean, we have such a huge reserve in the U.S. Without drilling, we could be self-sustainable for a long time. But I just posted an article in the chat room, and for those of you who want to read further into this, go to the whitehouse.com or .gov website. 5 things you need to know about Alaska's Bristol Bay. And that's where it gets into what they say they're doing for the environment there. But this is more Agenda 21. This is more making sure that their collateral has the resources in it that was promised that it would for the people who are going to come and inhabit and use these resources later. those being the people who are the holder of our debt.
Right on. And you know the UN, did you see this where the UN is? I can't find it. I opened it and then I shut it. I'm sorry, but the UN is involved.
The UN. Yesterday we talked about the resolution for the Palestinian state. The Washington.
No, we're talking about immigration. Some immigration, the Syrian refugees that we created, or an artifact of our foreign policy, the Clinton foreign policy, the Obama foreign policy. The UN is actually, where can I find this again? My goodness, the UN is actually bringing Syrian refugees, Muslim Syrian refugees here.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Did we?
Yes, yesterday we mentioned it. Yeah.
All right.
And what was the other? Jeb Bush announced today he's going to actively explore a bid for the 2016 presidency. I got to remember how this was stated, as this was early this morning when I woke up and I turned on the news when I was hearing about the tragedy in Pakistan. They were talking about Jeb Bush, throwing his hat in the ring for a run, but they said something like the Republicans have won a ticket. The only time the Republicans have won a ticket since 1972 is when a Bush has had his name on the ticket. Almost 40 years and that's from Reagan, the VP of Reagan. Wasn't that Bush Sr.? Was he Reagan's vice president?
Oh, yeah, Reagan and then George Herbert Walker Bush, 2 terms, 80 to is after subsequent to Carter, and then from 80 to 88.
Then you have
then you have George H.W. Right.
Yeah,
one
and
term,
then,
and then Clinton. But how does that work? Because we had Clinton and Gore in '92. So where was the Bush presence there? Of course, it's kind of a family thing.
For the Republican to when they win, only when the Republicans win. A Republican winning ticket since '72. One of a number of Bush family members have had their name on that ticket, and it's looking like it's going to be a Hillary Clinton, Jeb Bush election if you were to, start right now. I guess we'd say, just based on public perception.
Same old, right? If we have an election, same old. It's back. It's the more
recycling the same old vomit, or the dog turning back to its vomit. I mean,
yeah.
If we have another election and a Bush or a Clinton is elected, I'm gonna possibly run in 2020, which you couldn't pay me $1 trillion to be president for one day right now, but I might have to. Somebody might have to do something to change the way things are, because we can't have. Not that it matters really. I don't know why I got into the Bush election.
And it really doesn't. Yeah, you've got one party in this in the United States, and we saw that through the most recent legislation with the omnibus bill. Okay, the omnibus bill. We saw that where it extended the government, so to speak. But you saw Bonnier sell out his country solely. All of these Republicans have essentially sold their souls to the devil, as well as these Marxist progressives who we understand. Obviously, we understand that they've already done so. But you've got one party in this country, and as I like to say, you're not invited. You're not in it. It's the royalty. It's the This is just so incredible that people are still adhering to the mindset of Republicans versus Democrats. You tell me what difference there is aside from a letter on the other side of one's name, and even that. It certainly doesn't make any difference. But folks, we've got just a horrific government that, the executive branch, occupied by the Muslim in chief, the renegade in chief, the Saudi operative, the CIA Manchurian candidate, the illegal usurper in the White House. Of course, the Messiah to the Marxists. Yeah, that's what we got. That's what we got. But you know what? You see, we've got a battle. We've got to fight on. We've got to fight on. We've got to expose these people. We've got to hang these banksters from the lampposts. We've got to hang these politicians from the lampposts. We've got to take. We've got to take a stand, and we have to do so righteously. We are to occupy. We are to be here. We are to occupy. We are to play our positions. And well, I can't imagine being given the gift of life, yet sitting back and saying, "Well, hand me the remote and the popcorn." I can't imagine that. Or I can't imagine being the gift of life and being told that yes, we must occupy, we must stand in the gap, we must be solid Christians and not do anything. Sorry, but I just can't imagine that. And if that's your position, I'm out of here.
There you go,
everybody.
No, here's a quote from the last Bush president. If the American people knew what we have done, they would string us up from the lampposts. That from George Herbert Walker Bush.
Well, you're still sucking air, George. There's still time, right?
With that, we'll be back tomorrow. We have Ted Breuer coming on Thursday for the final 2 hours. And we have Greg Evenson and Steve Quayle coming on Friday for a 3-hour special show. And the following Monday, Josh Peck will be back on to talk about his second book, or first book, Disclosure. We talked about his first book the first time he was on a few weeks back, Quantum Creation. But we will have Ted Breuer on Thursday.
I've been advised by in-house counsel to say that none of my statements constitute any threats whatsoever. They were all said in there were none of them constitute any threats whatsoever. In-house counsel, thank you so much.
All right. With that disclaimer that none of your statements were of any seriousness, of any threatening nature, we will end the show on that note. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you so much for listening and supporting us with your prayers or spreading the word about the show, any capacity or way you can. We appreciate all your emails of inspiration, of criticism. As long as they're done in love, we can't thank you enough about how much you guys help us out. With that, have a great night. Stay safe, and God bless until tomorrow.